Let us start with a simple, powerful fact. Over 86% of the water flowing into the Nile River originates in Ethiopia. This single piece of data is the most important starting point. For centuries, the popular narrative has been that the Nile is Egypt's river, a gift of geography and history. This story is compelling but incomplete. It conveniently ignores the source, the highlands where the rains fall, the great tributaries being born. This 86% figure is not a political statement. It is a hydrological reality that must anchor our understanding. The traditional story centered on Egypt has shaped diplomacy and perception for generations. It paints a downstream nation claiming the river's full flow. But when we acknowledge the water comes from another sovereign nation, the frame must shift. The conversation is no longer about one country's historical gift. It becomes about shared resources, equitable utilization, and the rights of the upstream nation. Ethiopia built the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, for one primary reason: development. The dam is a monumental national project on the Blue Nile, the Nile's largest tributary. For Ethiopia, the GERD is not a weapon to harm its neighbors. It is a tool for national survival and progress. The country has one of the lowest rates of electricity access in Africa. The dam is designed to generate over 5,000 megawatts of electricity. This power is essential to light up homes, run schools, and hospitals, fuel industrial growth, to lift millions out of poverty. The project represents a sovereign nation's choice to harness its resources for its people, a right recognized under international law. Egypt's opposition stems from near-total dependence on the Nile. The river supplies over 97% of Egypt's fresh water. Cairo fears the GERD could give Ethiopia control over its lifeline, especially during the dam's filling period and in drought years. These are legitimate concerns requiring technical negotiation and data sharing. But Egypt's stance has at times escalated to demanding a veto over upstream development. That effectively asks Ethiopia to forfeit its development for Egypt's security, an inequitable demand. Leaders stress the GERD is hydroelectric, designed to regulate flow and reduce floods while smoothing dry season supply. The core conflict is the rules that will govern its operation. Ethiopia sees those rules as a matter for cooperative negotiation, not unilateral demands. Much of Egypt's diplomatic argument rests on treaties from the colonial era. Specifically, agreements from 1929 and 1959 are often cited. The 1929 agreement between Egypt and Great Britain gave Egypt veto power over upstream projects. The 1959 agreement between Egypt and Sudan allocated the Nile's entire flow between just those two countries, leaving zero water for Ethiopia and other upstream nations. These documents underpin claims to so-called historic rights. The most glaring issue: Ethiopia was never a signatory. As analyses note, these deals protected British and downstream interests while excluding Ethiopia. They excluded the independent nation, providing 86% of the water. Insisting today that Ethiopia abide by agreements it never signed is a relic of a bygone imperial age, legally and morally untenable. Sovereign nations are not bound by contracts signed by others, especially when harmful and colonial in origin. Egypt's reliance on this historical narrative is a powerful diplomatic tool, casting Ethiopia's actions as aggressive. But it freezes history and perpetuates inequality. It ignores decolonization, evolving water law, and the needs of over 120 million Ethiopians. This strategy sustains a stalemate. Ethiopia argues for equitable and reasonable utilization, a modern legal principle. Egypt counters with colonial-era control. Only by moving beyond exclusionary documents to fairness and cooperation can a deal be reached. The past cannot hold the future hostage. The only sustainable solution to the Nile dispute is a negotiated agreement based on fairness, based on data, based on mutual respect. The current diplomatic stalemate, marked by heated rhetoric and failed talks, serves no one's long-term interests. The path forward must reject zero-sum thinking and adopt cooperative river basin management. Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia must commit to a binding agreement on the filling and operation of the GERD, guided by neutral experts and grounded in shared hydrological data, not historical grievances. A fair treaty sets clear rules for wet and dry seasons, especially during drought. It creates transparency so downstream nations can plan for changes in flow, building trust and demystifying operations. It addresses Egypt's water security concerns while recognizing Ethiopia's right to generate electricity and develop. The goal is not to stop the dam, but to manage it as a shared asset for stability and prosperity. If Ethiopia powers its economy, it sets a precedent for energy independence and growth across Africa. Cooperative management can be a catalyst for peace, not conflict. Bodies like the African Union should facilitate talks centered on equity and shared benefit rather than external powers imposing solutions.